Hi, my name is Amanda Panacea, and you're listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. This is a community for self-healers, biohackers, practitioners, and any other helping professionals. You're in the right place if you're seeking conversations about how pain becomes passion, the connection between physical, energetic, mental, and our spiritual self, finding your body's ancient wisdom, the latest biohacking technologies, clinical research, and if you just want to nerd out about complex biochemistry and quantum physics. But this is also for entrepreneurs who seek infinite abundance and a supportive community. So pour a cup of King coffee or Sisters tea and let's join the revolution. Welcome everyone to the Healer Revolution podcast. I am your host, Amanda Panacea, and today I am just so thrilled to be introducing Dr. Rathika Marsh. You may know her on Instagram or YouTube or podcasts as the Spiritual Psychologist. And she and I worked together for about 6 months' time. And so now that we have completed our sessions, I'm so excited to go into her healing journey because she's just an incredible human being who really gets it. For me, it was so hard to find someone who I connected with that had education and experience and who had done the work on a level that I could respect and learn from. And Dr. Rathika Marsh is definitely that person. She had her own healing journey of exploring the feelings of not being enough, not feeling worthy, needing external validation in order to feel okay. And she also has 15 years experience as a psychologist with a doctorate in educational psychology. She was also a teacher prior to that, but she really, really thrives in understanding how childhood development can really impact our beliefs, our subconscious responses, and models of thinking that you develop as a child into an adult, and how they really come through and impact our lives. The other thing I love about Dr. Marsh is she's incredibly free-spirited. She loves dancing at festivals. She loves expressing herself through music, color, and dance. And she's just an incredible mother, new friend, and now colleague. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. It is filled with lots of amazing epiphanies and lots of great conversations about deep topics like subconscious beliefs, self-esteem, using drugs and alcohol, being a wild woman, and all the juicy things. So enjoy. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Healer Revolution podcast. This is your host, Amanda Panacea, and I'm really excited today to be able to talk to my ex-therapist, Dr. Rathika Marsh. Hi, Dr. Rathika. How are you this morning?
Hello.
Well, afternoon, I guess, where you are.
I'm good, thank you. I love the name of your podcast, Healer
Oh, thank you.
Revolution. It's so good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've always been really attached to the word revolution. So
Yes, I
everything.
bet you have.
Yeah.
I'm attached to the word revolution.
Yeah, it just really lights you up. Like, hell yeah, we're changing things over here.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I said ex-therapist because we're no longer seeing each other, but I was seeing you for quite a while. And I wanted to tell people the story of how I found you, because I also became a therapist, although I became a mental health counselor in the United States. And I saw therapists, I even saw some psychologists, and I was like, never really resonated with any of them. I just would see them. I believed in therapy and the practice, but I never had found like somebody who I felt was a good therapist or the right one for me. And so when I was going through chronic illness and kind of recovering from that, I typed in spiritual psychologist, and there you were. It was like a match made in heaven.
Yes, you found me. We found
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I don't actually call myself a therapist, but I
Yeah.
am a psychologist, and I guess it's branched into coaching. But
Hmm.
it's like such um a combination of things that I've created because it does go into the more therapeutic side and the trauma healing and um emotional wound healing, all of that stuff in combination with, where are we going next?
Right. Yeah.
Where are we moving to, right?
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
that was the other thing that attracted me to you. You had been through the medical model and then stopped practicing there and you branched out into coaching. And that also was important
Yes.
to me too. So
Yeah, it was definitely been a liberating journey. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, so you know all about me, but I'm really excited today to hear your story and how you got to where you are today. So by all
Yes.
means, tell me all the details.
Yeah. So I was born in England, and my parents are from Sri Lanka, and they were first generation that came across from Sri Lanka to England. And it brought, I guess, its own beauty and also challenges, because their values and the way that they were raised, the way that they perceived life, um, is very, very different to British culture.
I bet.
and and I think that I've experienced such a beauty of two worlds, you know, two worlds, because I'm very, very blessed actually, because I have my cultural roots and community, that I know that I can always kind of go back to and connect with, and the spiritual journey, spiritual elements from my upbringing as well. But also, I've had the pleasure of, British identity and culture and freedom and liberation and all of those things as well. So it's been like such a beautiful marrying of the two, but with that came, for me anyway, I think for a lot of people who are in a similar situation as me, a lot of identity challenges, because it was just one set of rules based a lot on fear. There was a lot of fear based parenting, um, and also being in a society with friends who had a whole different set of rules that they were living by. So it just felt like I was in one bubble in a bigger bubble that I couldn't access, you know? And yeah, I guess the journey was feeling a deep sense of a lack of belonging that definitely came up, and feeling feeling like my soul was constricted, and feeling disconnected from myself as a result. It's like I am a wild, I think a lot of people have this wild part of them. I'm a very free spirited person, but it was like, you have to be in this box and follow these rules, and it was just such a clash with who I was. And so it felt very, very it felt very trapping and constrictive. And from my parents' perspective, they were only trying to protect me, you know they were only trying to
Mhm.
protect me and do what they felt was right. But it was just so fear based. And when we operate from a place of fear, it it makes you controlling.
Yes.
It leads to control. When you think about, like, I'm sure that anyone listening to this today, when you think about when fear comes up for you, you want to control stuff. You want that sense of safety and security, and that can then manifest in like unhealthy ways in your relationships with your children, with each other, in relationships, and so on. So yeah, it was, for me, there was like such a big journey before I even like consciously found the spiritual path of just finding healthiness with myself, because I was in such unhealthy, damaging, self-destructive kind of patterns of behavior, very secretive, a secretive identity, a secretive way of being. And I just always felt this sense of like, what is wrong with me? You know, like, why can't I get myself together? Um, and just very low self-esteem, and so low self-worth as a teenager. And I guess like the first part of that liberation for me was leaving home, you know, and finding myself. And I had no sense of like, I don't know, independence at all when I left home, because everything was like just controlled so much, I think. So it was such a big journey. But later on, what I was finding was that, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, like it's like I was ticking all the boxes of society. Like, okay, I've got a good job, I did a doctorate, and even that whole narrative was like, oh, it must have been a fluke that I got on the course, you know.
Yeah.
Like, how did I do that? They must have, like, I don't know, they must have got something wrong.
Yeah.
And yeah, like totally downplaying that I had the skill set to get on this competitive course. And um yeah, so I kind of had like, you know, I became a psychologist, I was a teacher before that, like highly functioning, you know. And I had a partner, I was getting married, I have a child, I have a nice house, you know. And amongst all of that, still feeling this deep sense of like, people don't see who I am, and who I am is wrong or bad or brings up shame in me. And it's just so painful. It's so deeply painful feeling like that. Like, also kind of like, I remember going to different workplaces, like working as a teacher in different places, for example, and just never feeling like I fit in. And it's that black sheep thing, like always feeling like I'm the black sheep, like people don't get me, people aren't seeing me, they think I'm weird, or they're just not getting it, you know. And so I just to be honest, I just felt like yeah, like there was this whole secretive part of me still around patterns, around food, around my body, around how I perceived myself, not always being honest in my relationship with my partner, being secretive in that area as well, and then feeling intense shame, and just not connecting with the light in me, you know, not seeing that light, just feeling like, okay, I'm a bad person, there's something wrong with me, I don't belong in society, or like I don't belong in this society. And so I started doing, I think I just started finding it, universe came to me, God came to me in some way and directed me to find people, I don't know, on social media, just people started appearing, feeds started appearing, that I was like, oh, okay, what's this about? You know, what's this spirituality stuff about? And then I entered on a big spiritual journey and awakening. And, you know, the biggest initial realization was, I get to fully be who I am. Even if I have a son or a husband, or even if I'm a psychologist, I get to fully be who I am. And there's nothing wrong with who I am. And it, like, it was just such a big penny, you know, that dropped. And then it was like, okay, so if I can be who I am, woohoo! And I went crazy on exploring my expression of that. And initially it was like a lot of sexual expression, actually, a lot of sensual expression, like yeah, expression of like these parts of me that didn't feel like they were allowed, that was suppressed. um and yeah, that was an interesting creative like journey. And then I left my job as a psychologist because that was again um another area of my life where it was like, this is a box, this is how you operate, this is how you do things. If you don't do it this way, then you know you're bad or wrong, or you're gonna be in trouble. And it, yeah, there wasn't that creativity, there wasn't me, it wasn't me. It was like a very, very filtered down version of myself. So I then started playing around with, okay, what if I started creating my own Instagram page? And that's where the spiritual psychologist was birthed. And I just played around with it, just played around with putting stuff on there, expressing myself, using it as a platform to express who I was. And then it started developing into, okay, what if I owned this a bit more? What if I ran a program? And it's just built, built from there. And then I left my job, and I still do a bit of contracted work as a psychologist, but yeah, I'm fully in the spiritual psychologist world. So there's been a lot of pain, navigation of pain and shadows to get to this space now of showing up as me,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, I definitely resonate with so much of that story. Just feeling like you don't belong almost every place that you go to, or
Mm.
feeling like, oh my God, I'm a therapist now, or I'm a counselor now, or a psychologist now. Like I have to
Yeah.
act like this. I can't carry with me all of these old ways of being. And some of them, of course, were pretty unhealthy. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But just always feeling like I'm not good enough. I have to do the next thing. And that can kind of translate into health too, like never being healthy enough or fit enough, and always kind of
Yes.
chasing the next thing and never really being still and accepting like I'm right here, right now. And this is
Mm.
me.
Yes. Yeah. There's like so many layers of shame that we can hold about ourselves. And um yeah, that's what I support women to kind of liberate themselves from now, that there's these parts of people that they feel bad about. And it's like bringing in that shadow part of yourself, that is the shadow parts of you, the parts of you that you initially feel shame for, actually hold like your greatest power and wisdom. So in my business, my expression of sensuality, my expression of who, like different facets of who I am, that's like such a great gift to the world that I once saw as really bad and wrong. And yeah, I had to bring that part of me in and like welcome her and nurture her and love her into acceptance. And I was like, I don't want to accept you.
Yeah.
So it was uncomfortable, an uncomfortable journey, but it's like that part of you that's like, I want to be seen. There's these parts of you that pop up that like, I want to be seen more. This part
Mm-hmm.
of me is fun, you know? This part of me is creative. Why did I block it away? Because you were told to at some point. So
Mm-hmm.
it's navigating that, the depths of what is it that you have blocked about yourself, or what is it that you think that, where is it that you're blocking yourself in life in terms of how it is that you think that you should be living, and how you actually want to live, and what you want to experience.
Mm-hmm. And so how would you, what are some tips you would give someone if they feel like I don't have anything about myself that I don't know who I am. I don't know what
Mm,
direction to go in. I never had any talents or hobbies or anything like that.
yeah. I always think like this is a difficult thing for people to do, but we're often in our heads, and what we can practice is coming down to our hearts. So dropping our energy right down from, up here where we're in that thinking space, and just, closing your eyes and putting your hand on your heart and coming down to that space, because in your heart is where we hold so much. The frequency of love is so much higher than the frequency of fear. When we're operating in our head, we're often operating from that frequency of fear, aren't we? So,
Mhm.
so when we practice like dropping down to our heart space, we're coming back to that frequency of, okay, if I loved myself, what would I want to be experiencing right now? And so much of it, I think, like can come back to such simplicity, that which is that we lose ourselves in what we think we should be doing as adults, and so we lose the play and the joy part of us. Like, i want to I want to dye my hair yellow. That's so playful, isn't it?
Mhm.
Playful and creative and fun and exciting, and that part of us um gets shut down somewhere along the way. So a question you can ask yourself is, what did I what memories do I have, or what points in time did I experience joy? Because there's got to be a time at some point, even if it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when you experienced joy. That time can teach you so much. So if you can kind of come back to like a memory of something that brought you joy, where were you? Like, how did that how did that feel in your body? So say for example you were dancing in a club or something like that. Like, how did that feel in your body? What was it that felt really joyful? That memory might be like a bit convoluted. It might be that actually like you were a bit wasted
Yeah.
at the time, at the same time, but there's something underneath that that brought you joy. you know the
Mhm.
movement of dancing, of feeling free in your body, of feeling relaxed, or whatever it was. So there's just such great teachers in connecting to, what is it that brought me joy once, as a child, as a young adult, as an adult. What excites me? What excites me? We stop ourselves from asking those questions, because when we ask ourselves those questions, we realize that we have to do something about it. So if you say to yourself, okay, the thing that I really want is to go away for like 6 months, or I really want to go and climb a mountain in Peru or something like that. If we ask ourselves those questions, it opens up the possibilities. And then when we open up possibilities, the first thing that happens is that our ego kicks in. And the ego kicks in and it's like, you can't do that because you haven't got the money. You haven't, who are you to do that? Like, it's too scary, and all of those things. So before you've even asked yourself that question, the ego is going to come in to stop you in order to try and keep you safe. So I invite in that question of, okay, if you allowed the fear to be there, but asked yourself the question anyway of, what excites me? What is it that I'm really being like called in my heart to explore? Then you don't have to do it straight away. You can just explore it.
Mhm.
And yeah, I always think like working with your nervous system is such a great way of doing things, because you don't have to make a huge move in the space of a month. You can just explore options. Like, if you don't invite in the possibility of of an idea, it's never going to happen.
Right.
So there's that bit, isn't there, of, if I had total freedom, if I gave myself permission to fully choose what I want to experience, what would it be? And to write it all down.
Yeah.
To write it all down and to really like feel what you're being called towards, and then, yeah, and then start exploring it
Yeah.
as a seed.
Yeah, I like that.
Mm.
I'll often ask clients like, when was the last time you felt the most like yourself? Or like in the last
It's a
month,
great question.
when did you feel the most like yourself? Even if
Yes.
it's just like a teeny little minute.
Yes, yeah. And that's the thing. We might think that we've never had the experience of joy. We might say to ourselves, okay, well, in the last month, I've not had any joy, or I've not felt like myself at all. But there's always an array of emotions and life, I believe. You aren't always just depressed. You aren't always sad. There might be moments where you feel all right, you know? And it's recognizing that, it's being aware of that.
Hmm.
And yeah, asking yourself of what made it all right as opposed to terrible.
Hmm.
What made it joyful as opposed to boring. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I had another guest on who recovered from chronic neurological Lyme disease, like completely bedridden, couldn't stand light or sound. And
Wow.
he actually did a TED talk that was called It All Started with One Breath, because there was
Mm.
this little teeny moment where he realized that when I breathe out really slowly, I feel a teeny little increment better.
Yes, I love that.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's like such simplicity. Um, yeah, such simplicity. And like, I think with the healing, with the healing journey, is like, some of it, so much of it actually is about discovering magic. Discovering the magic and abundance that's already there. It's around you. But when you're in pain and suffering, when you're processing your emotional wounds and traumas and all of those things, when you're out of alignment with your true nature, with who you actually are, it leads to disconnection from that magic. And so we can't see it. We can't see how amazing life is. So that's where we have to return to ourselves, refind ourselves, not change ourselves, just come back to who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing that I think is so critical when you're in those like really deep, like terrible feeling moments of just trying to notice one thing that's beautiful, or putting
Yeah.
one thing in your house that you think is beautiful, whether it's a flower or a
Mm.
crystal or a picture, something that's
Yes.
going to allow you to be tapping into like, that's beautiful, or I'm grateful for that thing.
Yes, definitely. And the thing is, the more that you practice, the more you rewire that part of you. So
Yeah.
you can in this, you have practiced, you, not you, but we have been in spaces where we have practiced negative responses. We've practiced going straight into thinking when we get up, for example, or thinking negatively or feeling negatively. And you can learn the art of gratitude. And like, it's amazing, you know, that experience of feeling gratitude. It's so simple, but it's so powerful. And to
Mhm.
really, you know, to really feel that in your body, it's, yeah, for me, it feels very powerful. And the more that I practice that, the the more I don't take things for granted on a day-to-day basis, you know, that I fully appreciate, you know, my time on this earth is limited, and I'm gonna, what do I want to do with it while I'm here?
Right. Have you had to give up coffee for health reasons? Maybe because of the stress it was putting on your adrenals, maybe because it was messing with your sleep, maybe because you felt terrible after drinking it, or maybe because you were told coffee had mold on the beans and you needed to stay away from mold. Well, what if I told you there's an organic, mycotoxin free, quality coffee that contains reishi spores or Ganoderma lucidum? Ganoderma lucidum helps to modulate your immune system, adapt to stress, balance hormones, and doesn't give you the jitters or shakes like regular coffee used to. Sounds too good to be true, right? It's called King Coffee by the company Organo. And King Coffee came into my life when I was struggling with chronic hives, full body eczema, and mast cell activation syndrome. I hadn't drank coffee in years because it made me feel anxious, shaky, and clammy. So I had no expectations that drinking King Coffee would be any different. However, I decided to give it a try after seeing lots of amazing practitioners talk about the benefits of reishi online. I tried a 7-day sample and the chronic hives were gone by day 5. I was in shock. After that, I dove into the research on reishi and found that there are over 3,000 peer reviewed PubMed clinical trials using reishi Ganoderma as an intervention. The company Organo also has a patent protected on their harvesting process. They double crack open the spore shells, which makes them up to 80% more potent than the body of the reishi, which is usually used in other reishi products. This also makes the spores 90% more bioavailable for your body to use. If you would like to try King Coffee, visit thehealerrevolution.myorganogold.com, or for a 7-day trial, you can check out my link tree on my Instagram at Amanda Panacea. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something I'd like to kind of backtrack with that you mentioned when you are thinking of a moment that you maybe felt the most like yourself, or a moment where you felt really good about yourself or free, but you also might have been on drugs or alcohol at that moment. 'Cause this is something I've had to unpack a lot. Like most of my memories of um, being in these really free moments where I actually felt free and the most like myself, I was on drugs or alcohol.
Yes. Oh,
And so
yeah.
then there was also that shame of like, well, that wasn't truly me. So that can't be right. So you have to go
Yes.
back in your head, like trying to find other moments. And especially when you come from a place or a scene of like heavy partying like that, it's hard
Yes.
to find a moment.
Yeah. I mean, I think like a place to start there is that was a version of you.
Mhm.
It maybe wasn't like the the version that felt really good, but it was still a version of you. And so it's that thing of like, okay, actually, like that version, like, was awesome in her own way at that point in time. And like she's a great teacher. So it's kind of like, you know, like bringing her in, that part of you that was wild and high at the same time. She is a teacher for something that you were desiring at that point in time. And I don't believe that it's just escapism. I think some of it is um wanting to find connectedness, but doing it in a way that isn't true connectedness. And that's why, like, clubbing and party drugs, alcohol, it all kind of works in many ways, doesn't it? Because you relax, you're relaxed, and so you're more connected with the experience. You're connected with the sounds, you're connected with your heart, or you think you are, and you're connected with feeling that sense of freedom in your body. So when you're drinking or using drugs, it gives you those, I guess, to a degree, that uh I guess it's like a falsehood of connectedness, if that's a word.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So it's almost like, how can you, for me, it's been a journey of like, who is my wild woman? Because there's the wild woman in me that was also the party animal, and
Right.
that didn't always know when to stop drinking, or did, like, you know too much of a drug for my small body. Do you know what I mean? And I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it, but I'd still, like, not have any sense around it. But yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, I've had to, yeah, rediscover, like, okay, without that, then where do I get my wildness from?
Yeah.
And that's been a journey of, like, exploration, and it's ongoing as well, because it's not an easy journey when you've had that dependency. When your fun has been associated with substance, it's like, okay, what do I do without it? So the more connected you can become with yourself, the more you start, I think, to connect with the wild part of you. And so much of it, I think, for me anyway, has been permission. So permission to go and travel by myself, even though I have a family, you know permission to, like, I just started African drumming lessons.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, that's not, something that I've thought about doing. It's so much fun, it's wild.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And going to finding, like, finding communities that where there's celebration, that doesn't involve alcohol, but you're still getting that real sense of natural high, you know? And it's so you can find it in lots of different ways, but that's where I think you're truly finding wild.
Hmm. Yeah.
You're truly finding wild, and what you actually will find is that the true wild within you is permission to be a greater expression of who you are, and permission to live in a way that you choose to live, and taking action on that, even when other people don't get it.
Yeah. And I think, well, with drugs and alcohol, they give you that permission, like socially, and
Yes.
society is like, well, we understand that you'll be more free, you'll be more inhibited on
Yeah.
these substances, but like redoing the narrative of, no, I can act like that without it. I don't want to go too
Yes.
far and act completely ridiculous, but I can still go dancing. I can still act crazy and funny and childlike without the
Yeah.
excuse that, oh, I need this to act like that.
Mm. Yeah. And yeah, and to dress up, like,
Yeah.
I love festivals because, I mean, there's always a bit of confusion for me, because there is the alcohol drugs element in a lot of great festivals. But I love the freedom of festivals, in terms of being that you can go and dress up, if you go to the right festivals,
Yeah.
in anything, in anything you want to dress up in, and you'll still be loved. Do you know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah. Halloween's always been my favorite holiday. And that's one of the reasons I love living in Miami. They have just huge events all the time, and you can
Yes.
literally just be exactly how you feel like being.
Yeah, I bet it's amazing.
Yeah. As you can tell, like dye your hair, you can put jewels on your
Yeah.
face, you can wear like crazy headdresses, you could be mostly naked sometimes.
Yes. And like, yeah, just coming back to that, like the wild part of me has definitely, when I really tune into what makes me feel that sense of liberation and freedom, it's actually often connected back to nature.
Hmm.
So like hiking up a mountain, or like finding a mountain somewhere that I want to plan a trip to, or what, like swimming naked, those things are so liberating, and you're accessing the freedom part of you that the drugs and alcohol that you felt that you were getting from it, but actually the problem was that it came with a massive up and down.
Hmm.
So it wasn't aligned to what felt, um I don't want to say pure, but like
Yeah.
true to who you are, and
Yeah.
loving, yeah, honoring yourself.
Yes, definitely.
Mm.
And I think like with certain drugs at least and alcohol, it unlocks a way that you didn't know, I guess, existed. And
Yes.
like, because MDMA, psilocybin, those things really transformed my self-esteem in my early 20s. So I don't want to say like
Mm.
it was all bad. There's definitely lots and lots of fun and good
Yes.
times and good things that came out of it.
Mm.
But after you know that it's possible, you can re-access that feeling. You just have to
Yes.
teach your body how to get back there. So you can find
Yeah.
that without using the drug. And people nowadays are um, low dose psilocybin and doing microdoses, and
Mm.
just even like the teeniest little shift, you like your brain turns on like, oh, I forgot that I had the access to thinking this way. And then
Yes.
afterwards, like sometimes all you need is a little nudge.
Yeah. It's so funny because I went to this festival last summer, and I was in a like full-on trance tent. It was a kind of outdoor tent. They had like camouflage nets above, and they had glow in the dark butterflies. It was really beautiful, but like
Hmm.
really full on trancey. And I was in there with my friend, and after about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I felt like I was coming up on a pill,
Yeah.
and I completely freaked out. And I had a drink, and I was like, some that barman spiked my drink, walked out of the thing, chucked through the drink, started freaking out, took a deep breath, and then I was like, oh no, no, no. I think it was just the music.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And it honestly, it triggered like a just the repetitive sounds created that response in my body of like coming up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I had a similar experience where I went to, there was like a community spiritual event, and there was meditation and different things. And then we went into like this drumming thing. So we were drumming and dancing for maybe an hour. And I was looking around at everybody, and they looked like they were taking something, but they weren't.
Yeah.
And again, the drumming, it was like it put the whole experience put me in this elevated vibration and state that felt a little bit similar to substance use,
Hmm.
but it wasn't. So you can definitely, I think like repetitive beats and music and that kind of thing, and your own movement, it can definitely like shift you to that space if that's what you're wanting to access. But
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've reached similar emotional states with like gong meditations, like that
Yes.
long 2 hour type gong meditations.
Mm.
And then Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this. That is that true heart brain coherence. Like when they measure
Yes.
people's brain waves, once the heart and the brain are fully in coherence, the brain waves just light up into that like transcendental, um,
Yes. Yeah.
those type of brain waves, and you
Mm.
can see it happening. And that's
Yeah.
when
It's
people
so
have those
powerful.
moments where they're like, there was light coming in and all the
Yeah.
part of pain in my body was gone.
Yes. Yeah. It's amazing. So
Yeah.
powerful. So you like I kind of think like go on, you know, that's an adventure, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you are wanting to access that kind of a state, like that's a cool adventure to go on to explore that without the use of substances.
Yes.
And not that we need to be in that state, but why not once in a while?
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine if you had trained your brain and body to access that on a regular basis?
Mm, yeah. So
That would be
so
incredible.
powerful.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I love talking about drugs and alcohol, but I also wanted to ask you, so you've been with your husband since you were very young, and he
Yes.
was there with you through like all of these like transformations that you went through, dark night of the soul years, and
Mm,
coming into yourself more. How was navigating this with another person?
yeah, that's a brilliant question. It's challenging.
Yeah, I bet.
It's yeah, definitely. Like I got together with my husband when I was 21, and considering that at the age of 18, I hadn't um I hadn't really drank. I hadn't I I think I kissed somebody for the first time when I was 18, and then I had like this window of basically like you have rules and then there's no rules. So I had like a wild 3 years of exploration, and then I was in a very serious committed relationship. So there was so much, there's been so many evolutions, but probably it's been quite condensed in the last 5 years. And that's been challenging. It's been challenging because um I guess for different reasons. One, greater levels of honesty, which has created pain, you know, being honest, being in it, like creating a conscious relationship with somebody means that you have to go to the depths of greater honesty about how you're feeling in your relationship, about how you're feeling about yourself, about how you're feeling about life, and to be more truthful. And that is difficult because it challenges a part of you, especially if um especially if you spent many years being in secrecy around who you are. So that's been like a big that was the first kind of first thing. Honesty can be really challenging, and honoring each other in that process of honesty, um and holding space for creating space for each other with that. Secondly, the biggest challenge is probably when I was going through this big spiritual journey, my husband wasn't. And, you know, he knew that I was like on this journey, but I think he was looking at me thinking, what the hell is going on? I wasn't sure if I could swear or not.
Oh
What the hell
yeah,
is
you can.
what the fuck is going on? So it was like he was sort of watching it, and I think seeing me change from what he had seen. And he said to me once, "You've changed." And he said it like it was a bad thing. And then I was kind of like, we're meant to change. We're not supposed to say the same. you know? So there's just been so much around. I think probably it's been in some ways very challenging for my partner because, when you open up the box of I give myself permission to follow my soul and where I'm being guided to, that can feel that can trigger a sense of unsafety for the other person, so yeah. It's like I'm like, and I don't know if people know about human design, but I'm a generator as well, so it's like I'm always like, okay, come on, let's do this, let's push the edge to this place. And he's a different person, so he doesn't necessarily go at the same pace as me in life with things. He needs a lot more time to process and integrate and all of that. So he's I guess like had to be very patient, and I'm learning. I guess I've learned to equally patience and compassion for where he's at on his journey. But it's, the other challenging bit has been this space that we got to where, I'd kind of done so much work on myself and my pain, my inner pain, and he didn't necessarily see that. He didn't necessarily see what I went through internally to get to this place of freedom and liberation. And then I was in that place of freedom and liberation and like, yeah, let's go in life. And he was in the depths of darkness. So it was difficult because I was in a space of, I just want to live. I don't want to have to deal with your shit now.
Yeah.
So I had to really, come back to a place of compassion, but also boundaries that honored my needs, because it felt very, very constrictive when you found that space of liberation, and then somebody else is like, it's feeling like they're pulling you back because they're in their own pain. That's really difficult. So it was very, very challenging. Yeah, very, very challenging. And I just think like everybody has their responsibility for their journey. And so, that was something I made very clear, that like, I will love and support you. And, having those open conversations about where I was also putting a guard up to protect myself. So not being compassionate, just cutting myself off, to protect myself. So there's so many conversations we've had over the over time. And I think like the biggest thing that has supported me on my journey in our relationship has been um like really taking responsibility for my commitment. you know do I want to be in the relationship or not, or am I kind of like semi in it? Am I semi in it, like 1 foot out, you know not fully committed really? So in terms of your energy and in terms of how am I showing up for the other person in the relationship, because a lot of people can look as though they're committed, but actually energetically they're completely detached and cut off.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so, and that's a protection thing, isn't it? But that's been like really really helpful, coming back to that, like coming back to that, like what are my commitments and visions for life? And is this thing here that I'm doing, does that fit in with the vision? Does it fit in with the commitments? Or is this something I need to let go of? How am I showing up and taking responsibility for like my shadows, for the ways that I can show up in hurtful ways to him, or the ways that I can show up that are impatient or whatever it might be. So it's definitely been like a journey, and an accepting that, yeah, and accepting a greater acceptance that we're both on our individual journeys, but that we're also on a conscious joint journey as well, and
Hmm.
revisiting it.
Yeah, I love that. That's all really good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, for myself personally, I the relationship I'm in now, I'm so glad that I was the one that got horribly sick first and went through my shit first, because I got to see like what true actual love was. Because in my past
Oh,
relationships, when things got really hard, I was like, not dealing with this. I'm out. It's
oh
not worth
yeah.
it.
Mm.
Um, and then this time, afterwards, and then he started to go through his stuff, it was like, oh, I get it now. Like, this one is worth it. This one's not too
Yes.
hard. I can hold this space like you just did for me. And so it
Mm.
was just a totally different feeling, like in the body. Whereas in the past, it
Yes.
was like, get out now, get out.
Yes, yeah. And it's, yeah, yeah. It's also that he's modeled to you what maybe you haven't received before in past
Hmm.
relationships.
Oh,
So
by
yeah,
far, yeah.
if yeah, so it's like it's that thing of yeah, you've had that experience of, oh right, it can be like this.
Yeah.
It can be like this. What's I deserve this.
Hmm.
Deserve this level of love.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so beautiful.
And so, just to before we wrap things up, I love getting to know how you've turned your story, your passions, your whole self into a business model, and you actually can make an income doing this, and how that
Yes.
looks, like how your day to day looks, and like how it all got started, maybe some of the mistakes or struggles that came with the
Yeah.
starting a business.
I think like the biggest piece around business is self-trust. And I get like at the moment I'm on a journey of as well, like not just trusting myself, but trusting that I have like a spirit team, an ancestral team, God, that are backing me, that want the best for me, and really tuning into that. Because I think what I've learned so far is like, I'm thinking it's just me. So then when things don't work out, like a launch flops, that it means something bad about me. Do you know what I mean? It means that I failed, or it means that I've done something wrong, or people don't
Mhm.
like me, or people think that person's better, or whatever the stories are that come up. So, yeah, really trusting in like there's a path that's being created, and to trust that, path, But I think for me, like the journey has been like a journey of greater self acceptance. Like that's where things have really grown to creating, I guess, my own name or brand or whatever you want to call it. That it's me, it's a reflection of me and the work that I've done on myself, and so that I feel that whatever I'm creating, whether it's a program or whether it's a post or whatever it might be, that it's me, and if you're still holding like all these deep levels of shame about yourself, then it's very difficult to do that. You're going to create a version of yourself that is actually somebody else, is a copycat of somebody else, which is a lot of what Instagram is actually,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like there's a lot of, when you see like feeds that are, there's really beautifully curated feeds, I mean, there are some gorgeous feeds that have like deep meaning behind them, but you know, when you kind of look at like influencer type feeds, and they're all very, very similar, aren't they?
Hmm.
Because there's that fear of showing up as like just who you are.
Hmm. And I
So
think,
that, I think that's been the biggest, yeah.
yeah, there's like once I got into, okay, I'm going to start my own coaching business, you all of a sudden get all these ads and other people telling you, don't do it this way, do it this way,
Yes.
do it this way, do it this
Yeah.
way. And you're like, I have to not listen to any of it. It's just making
Yeah.
it worse.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the bit. It's like um that takes you, social media, if you're not careful with it, if you're not intentional with it, it takes you away from your mission, your purpose, and your power.
Right.
And so then, and I've done this. Like, I'm realizing more and more the importance of honoring my who I am and my uniqueness and my unique gifts, that and everybody has that. And the more that you honor that, the more that you're creating something that nobody else can copy. You know, nobody else can reflect or represent what you do in the same way, because they're not you.
Right. And now with AI, it's going to get even worse.
So,
So yeah,
yeah.
what does your day-to-day life look like? Like, how do you take care of yourself and your business all in one?
Mm. At the moment, my day to day feels very spacious. I don't have like too many clients at the moment, and I feel like good about it. I'm like creating, relaunching my podcast and YouTube. So I've been doing that, supporting clients. I'm launching a new program as well in at the end of March. So I'm doing a lot of work on that behind the scenes and just planning content, you know, creating content. Um and in terms of what I do to look after myself, I get up. At the moment, I'm doing some intensive cacao work. So that I can bring that into my work as well with clients. And so at the moment, you know, and I think this will just continue, my morning feels very ritualistic, a lot of clearing energy, inviting in spirit and ancestors, and allowing cacao medicine to, you know, that plant medicine to guide me, um, saying prayers, and yeah, setting intentions for the day, tuning into my heart with that medicine. Um, and that doesn't have to take a long time, but sometimes I like to allow the space for more of it. So that's what I'm really feeling at the moment, just this sense of like wanting spaciousness in my diary rather than packing it out. So I'm just giving myself permission for that. But other times I'm a hustler. So I am on it. Like, yeah, I'm on it, like creating stuff, writing programs. Also, I still do some contracted work as a psychologist, so I pick that up when I want to. So sometimes I'm full in like report writing. um I always take my dog out, so that's always like a midday, like nice break. And just honoring like my body, so I don't overkill in the gym, but I commit to like training, doing weights 3 times a week. And just always, you know, unless I'm ill, unless I'm like on my period, honoring that commitment, you know, and showing up for myself so that I feel good. So I feel good in my body. um and then being boundaried, like trying to be boundaried with work so that I can be more present with my son and my husband, which can be difficult as well. And that's a balance, that's a balance that I kind of have been working on finding, because yeah, sometimes by the time my son gets home from school, I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
So then at that point, I know I've done too much, actually,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to be available and present. So it's like, okay, how do I pace it a bit more evenly, so that there's not this like feeling of tension in your body, like I've got to get all of this done in like this period of time. And yeah, I stepping into that place of power of um I get to choose how I run my business. If I want to push a launch, I get to push it.
Yeah.
I have full control over that, and there's no desperation. That's definitely the space I've come to, I think, or I'm coming more to, like, trusting that trusting that things will flow, and I don't need to like be pushing and forcing. I'm coming from that energy in my business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful advice. All right. Well, this has been absolutely delightful. I'm so glad we got to sit down and finally do a podcast. Tell everybody listening where to find you, how to work with you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. That's the main place, main hangout, at the spiritual_psychologist. I have a podcast called The Spiritual Psychologist, and a new, soon to be launching YouTube. If you want to work with me, I have a website, which is the spiritualpsychologist.co.uk. Where else can you find me? Those are the spaces. And I have a couple of really beautiful one-to-one programs. I'm launching a program at the end of March, which is, I've not nailed the name yet fully. I'm not fully behind it, so I'm not going to say what it is, but it is a
Okay.
program for leaders, coaches, healers to find that greater sense of confidence, but also skill set in terms of trauma knowledge, awareness, informedness, operating from a place of integrity, and really building strong foundations in the work that you do, which reflect who you are, and coming from that energy of like what your purpose, your specific individual like purpose and mission and way of working is, that creates a unique blueprint. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, that sounds like really good.
Yeah. And finally, I'm running a retreat in Bali in July as well. I've got a few places left on that. So there's lots of different ways to connect with me.
Dying to do your trip in Bali, but flight is like 2 days for me.
Yeah, I know. I did suggest dropping in Russia. I was
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't know if that
Yeah.
would quite work as a combo,
Yeah.
Russia and Bali.
Yeah, maybe the year after I could like make a Europe stop, stay for a bit, so it's not
Yes.
such a huge flight.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely be doing something in Europe, I think, next year.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everyone for listening. I've loved getting to know you better from this side as opposed to the other side.
Yes. I've loved being on this side as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. You're welcome. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. I am just so thrilled that you're listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. This has been a huge passion project for me and super therapeutic on top of that. helping me to use my voice and connect with other like-minded individuals. So if you're enjoying the podcast, please like and subscribe. Please share on social media or with your audience or friends or loved ones. I truly appreciate it. It does take a lot of time and financial costs to run the podcast, and it is not a moneymaker, let me tell you. So if you are enjoying this, I would truly appreciate your support just by sending me a post, a like, and a subscribe. Thank you so much.